Chapter 6. Lee and I were sitting outside the door of the hermit's hut. In this tiny shelter, a man who had fled from a dark and horrifying world had found some kind of peace. Maybe. We didn't know that. We had fled an ugly world too, but were not able to cut off from it the way he had. We brought some of it here with us, and we had to keep going out into the rest of it. Nevertheless, I felt some peace when I was at the old cavern. There was no place more remote for us to escape the human race. Sometimes I'd crawled here along the creek bed, like a sick dog crawls into the dark bushes to wait until it dies or gets better. Sometimes I'd come here to reassure myself that other human beings had ever existed. Sometimes it was because of an obscure idea that I might find answers I wouldn't find elsewhere. After all, the hermit had spent a long time here alone. Free from the distracting noises of the world, he must have had a lot of time to think. Free from the distracting noise of the world, he must have had a lot of time to think, and his thinking would have had some special quality, surely. Or was I just being naive? I started cleaning the hut, slowly and occasionally with Lee's help. It had never gleamed like a suburban home in a television ad, but the left-hand side was looking quite neat, and it stood out more distinctly from the bush that had almost engulfed it. I'd never been a fan of housework during the peace, but I was quite proud of what we'd done here. This day, though, so soon after the attack on the convoy, I hadn't felt like continuing the cleaning. I just sat, leaning back into Lee's warm chest, letting his long arms come around me, and his fine musician's fingers do what they wanted. I hoped if he held me hard enough and touched me hotly enough, he would prove to me that we were still alive, and maybe even chase my shadow away. The day was cold and grey. I felt cold and grey inside and out. We'd never really discussed the attack on the convoy. None of us, I mean, not just Lee and me. That was unusual. We'd normally talk passionately about everything that happened, but maybe this had been too big. Not so much blowing up the trucks, that was big all right, but it was like the bridge, dramatic, scary, exciting. The hard things were the close-up personal things. Homer not telling us about his gun, Homer shooting the soldiers, me killing the wounded soldier. They were so intimate that I couldn't talk about them. It would have been like talking about my own blood. Still, at least that day, Lee and I did talk about real things, things that mattered. "Are you okay since the big shooting match?" he asked. I don't know how I feel anymore." "But you still have feelings?" His hand was under my t-shirt, stroking my stomach. I smiled. "Oh yes, just one or two, but they mostly seem bad ones nowadays." There was a pause of a minute or so before he asked, "Such as?" "Fear, anger, depression. How's that for a start?" "Not good ones at all." "Not a lot." "None?" "Not good ones at all?" "Not a lot." "None?" "Oh, I know what you want me to say. Love you and all that stuff, I suppose." "No, I didn't want you to say that." He sounded hurt. "I wasn't even thinking of that. I was just worried about you." Sorry I didn't seem to be able to think like a normal person anymore. Everything's distorted. Can you believe those other countries won't do anything for us?" "Well, seems to me there are a few countries overseas who were invaded and we didn't do anything about them. I thought we were different. I thought everyone loved us. I guess they only liked us. There's a major difference between like and love." Tell me about it." "What is it with them? What is it with you then? Like or love? Do you like me or love me?" I asked it lightly, but I was nervous, waiting for his answer. "That's a big question." He made circles around my belly button with his middle finger, then went a bit higher. My skin felt alive at each point where he touched me, though the rest of me was still cold. Then he said very slowly, "I like you with all your faults, Ellie, and I think that's love." I was a bit angry at first, thinking of all Lee's faults, his brooding silences, his flashes of temper, his hunger for revenge. But I knew I had faults too. My bossiness, my tactlessness, and the way I was overcritical sometimes. And then I began to realize what a big compliment he had paid me, what a big statement he had made. He was right. There's a difference between the way you feel before you know a person and the way you feel after. I had those rushes of heat that I thought were love. When you see someone so beautiful, you want to follow them for the rest of your life, just so you can keep staring at them. That kind of love didn't mean much. It was like some of my friends at school saying they loved a film star or a pop singer. That wasn't love. He was talking about feelings as big as these mountains. For a moment, a new world opened in my mind, where I was an adult, working hard, holding a group of people together, being a leader. With a shock, I realized I was thinking about parenthood. Forget it. That was not on my agenda. I sat up and peeled Lee's hand from my breast. "What's wrong?" he asked. "I don't want this to get too serious." "Yes, you do." "Lee, don't tell me what my feelings are." He just laughed. "Well, you don't know what they are, so I might as well tell you." "Oh, excuse me? So you know what they are? So you do know what they are?" "Yes, yes, of course." "Okay, fire away." "What do you mean?" "Well, you're so sure you know how you feel." "Well, you're so sure you know how you feel. Go ahead and tell me. I can't wait to find out." "Oh, you're so annoying." "All right, how do I feel?" Okay, okay, got it. I feel confused." "See, I was right. You don't know how you feel." "Yes, I do. I feel confused. I just told you that." "But confusion's not a feeling." "Yes, it is." He wrestled me down again. "Ellie, you're up to your old tricks. Too much thinking, not enough feeling." He kissed me hard for a long time, till I was kissing him back just as hard. Then the kisses became soft and slow, kinda messy, but nice. But I was still bothered by a few things. So when we paused for a breath and Lee was nuzzling my shoulder, I started again. "Lee, I know you're trying to kiss me into silence, but seriously, I am worried about us. About you and me. I don't know what's going to happen, how we're going to end up. And don't say something dumb like, no one can predict the future. Tell me something I don't already know." "Well, what else can I say? The future is, I don't know. What's the future? It's a blank sheet of paper. We draw lines on it, but sometimes our hand is held and the lines we draw aren't the lines we wanted." Lee said this in a dreamy way, gazing up at the canopy of branches above us, but I was deeply impressed. "Far out, did you just think of that?" "More or less. I mean, I've thought of it before, but this is the way it came out this time. Anyway, it's true, and that's all that matters." I suppose it is. But here in hell, we get to draw the lines how we want most of the time, or much more than we ever could before. There's no adults around holding our hands. No, but we've got our own thoughts, which do the same job. The way we kept our heads together proves that. I bet a lot of people would have expected us to be into an orgy of sex, drugs, and chocolate. But we've been pretty straight, so far. "Oh yes, what does that mean?" "You know. Are you referring to sex, drugs, or chocolate?" "Well, I know which one means the most to me, and it sure ain't chocolate." "You think we should do it, don't you?" "It," he teased me. "What is it?" "You know." "Okay, yeah, I think we should do it." "I knew you did," I said, but I wasn't sure if he was serious or being funny. "And you want to do it too?" "Sometimes I do," I admitted, going a bit red. "That's what this conversation's really about, isn't it?" "Maybe it is," I sighed, and brushed my hair away from my face. "Christ, Lee," I said, turning to him suddenly and grabbing him by the top of his shirt. "Sometimes I want to do it so badly my skin's swollen with it. Do you think Homer and Fee have done it?" "Nah, Fee would have told me. Girls are funny the way they tell each other stuff like that. And guys don't. Come on, give me a break. Anyway, after she read what you wrote about them, she mightn't tell you so much. After what I wrote about them, they've hardly touched each other. Yeah, they did go a bit funny. Hey, wait a minute. Are you going to be writing down this conversation?" "If I do, I won't be showing anyone." "You better not." "So," he turned back to me and picked up my hand and began to stroke the back of it. "So what's the story, El? What's going down? Why are we having this conversation?" "I don't know. I'm crazy with worry about so many things. For instance, sometimes I think maybe we're with each other just because there's no one else around. If we were back at school and we'd never been invaded, we might hardly be friends. So is this meant to be, or isn't it? It might be like one of those summer romances they have in American movies, and somehow it doesn't seem real, if that's all it is." Lee went to say something, but I stopped him. Okay, I know what you're going to say. I think too much. I admit it, but I guess I'm dodging the big issue. And the big issue, well, it's sort of what you said. We've been together a while now, and we've been pretty good. But there's something in me that wants to go further, and I don't mean only physical. Although there's definitely that. As I talked, I began for the first time to get an inkling of what it might be. I think it's to do with all the things that have happened to us. The invasion and being here and going out and blowing things up and killing people. I'm sort of asking, is that all our life's going to become? Just sitting here, spinning our wheels. Every few weeks, go out and kill a few more soldiers. If that's all life has to offer for the next 50 years, then forget it. I want to go forward, no matter what else is happening around us. We haven't gone forward one space since we got here. We haven't built anything except a few crummy chalk yards. We haven't learned anything. We haven't done anything positive. We've learned a heap, I reckon. Oh, about ourselves and stuff. But I don't mean that kind of learning. I mean stuff that's useless for its own sake. And so it's beautiful, if you see what I mean. Like the names of constellations and the shapes they form in the sky. Like the way Michelangelo painted the Sistine Chapel on his back with paint dripping in his eyes. Like, Fibonacci sequences, or the Japanese tea ceremony, or the French word for railway. They're the kind of things I'm talking about. Can't you understand? I guess so. You mean, if we lose those things, we'll be defeated, no matter what else happens, no matter what military victories we win. Exactly. You do understand. We have to do things that say yes, not just things that say no. Planting all those seeds, that was a good thing to do, but we should have planted flowers too. The hermit understood that. That's why he put in these roses. And when he made that bridge, he didn't just shove a few logs across the creek. He made it beautifully, so it'll last hundreds of years. We have to create things and think in the long term. Leave stuff behind us for others. Life rules. Yeah. And I leapt away and did a dance through the hermit's dark little house, coming back with dozens of rose petals that I scattered generously on Lee's face. But that wasn't really enough. I'd suddenly built up so much energy that I could have planted 1,000 trees, kissed 1,000 guys, built 1,000 houses. Instead, I ploughed my way back down the creek at high speed, ran in zigzags through the clearing, then jogged up the track to watch the sunset from Staten Steps. When it was dark and all the flies had gone to bed for the night, Homer and I killed one of the lambs. I knelt on it while he cut its throat. Then I jerked back its head to break the bone and let the blood run out. Then I jerked back its head to break the bone and let the blood run out, the life flow away. We skinned it between us, Homer using his big fist for the belly and brisket. I hadn't been looking forward to doing this. I'd thought that I mightn't be able to, that it might bring back the terrible memories from the ambush, but it didn't. I don't know if the conversation with Lee had cleared the sky of my menacing shadow, but as soon as I grabbed the lamb, I automatically started doing what I'd done in the old days. We always kept our own killers. You never get blasé about slaughtering an animal. For instance, taking out the warm heart, which feels like the life is still held in it. It's a powerful experience, no matter how many times you do it. It is for me, anyway. So you don't do it like you're a robot, or like you're peeling spuds. But to my relief, I found it went pretty much as it always had done. And that really was a relief. We cut off its head and chucked it into the pit Fee had dug for the leftovers. I'm not into brains, and that particular night I couldn't bring myself to skin its face or cut out the tongue. Then we strung the carcass up over a branch to gut it. We were under so much pressure from the others to provide a barbecue that we went ahead and butchered it straight away, even though it's better to wait and let it cool. But we hacked off the first chops with some rough bush butchering, and onto the fire they went. It was midnight before our hungry mouths closed on the hot pink meat, but it had been worth the wait. We ate well, grinning at each other as our blackened, greasy fingers tore at the food. The death of one thing can be the birth of something else. I felt new determination, new surety, new confidence.